Good day. It's January 10th, Monday, and this is your Master Pattern Report. I'm your host, Dr. Bob Flower. Well, last week silver went from a high of approximately $31 to a low on the 7th of $27.90. The 7th was our call date, by the way. This was off from our end of the year down move by 5 business days, but it has occurred, and we think that we'll see that bottom tested again here before silver starts back up around the end of the month into February. We expect that silver is going to have a high sometime in February. We'll keep you apprised of some dates here. The S&P made a move of 20 points on the 3rd, right smack on our call date. So that was a solid call by the Master Pattern. And interest rates are clawing their way up, as we have said that they will and will continue. This week, oil is on the up move, back up to around the 91.50 level, and this time it may penetrate that level. We'll see how things are going. That's going to depend on the economic news this week. And don't forget what we've said before, that oil is moving in conjunction with the economy. If the economy goes up, so does oil. However, the dollar is strengthening. Europe is weakening, but the dollar is strengthening. So be mindful of that, because that could have some vast implications for the lending community. Now this week we expect silver to make its move on the 14th, and the S&P as well. Interest rates up, oil up, so be mindful of that. Okay. Now at this point, let's discuss the Arizona shooting, and there's going to be a lot of discussions about something that is very consistent throughout American history, because we are a democracy, and that is attempted assassinations. History is filled with them. Even recent history, of President Ford and not President Carter. Nobody wanted to kill him. President Reagan. This is commonplace. But if there was to be a fault here, the fault is with the politicians. People, especially deranged people, become even more so because of the behavior of leadership on them. Now, as we know, the politicians, their arrogance, their indifference, their recalcitrance to change, their egotism, and more, causes significant frustration and the vitriolic responses from nutcases like the shooter. So when they start talking about the right and Rush Limbaugh and this, I don't agree with a lot of what these extremists or advocates say on either side. I mean, there's truth. There's a lot of truth there, but the tone, is extreme, and you got to be more middle ground to understand the other side, so that you can bring them together and foster an answer that's going to work for all parties. And I'm going to give you an example towards the end here. But the more that these politicians reject us, the more things like this are bound to occur. They just don't get it, and let's hope that enough people respond to this in the same way that we're responding here. In other words, they're to blame because of their attitudes and their total disregard for the public. Nancy Pelosi, come on, give me a break. You know, I mean, if anybody's going to cause somebody to blood to boil and want to kill congressmen, there's a classic example. All right, let's look at some 2011 predictions. The market's going to rally up until February. Then the good news that we've been enjoying will change to negative. Right? You may see the unemployment rate drop a little bit, but we think you're going to see it raise back up here again. And other economic news. Again, Wall Street looks good. Main Street looks absolutely horrible, the worst it's ever looked. The market, we think, looks like it's going to have an up and a down year. We'll get a good rise up, and then a knockdown on some bad news. Rise up, knock down on another bad news. Now, the first of these bad news occurrences is going to be somewhere around the second week in April, and I'm not talking about the tax return April 15th, but it's going to be around that date that we're going to see some sort of very negative economic news that's going to cause a sufficient downturn here. All right. The next move for silver is going to be somewhere around $37, $37.20, $37.25, and we think that will be coming in February. And there's a good, strong possibility at this point that we're going to see silver at around $49 by year end. Some of the things to watch for this coming year and relatively soon are trade sanctions, currency restrictions, and I think that's going to be very interesting for the prices of commodities, especially with smaller countries, the ones that are doing the agriculture, for instance, and the ones that are doing the metals. And so much. There's going to be more euro problems around May, and don't be surprised if you see that euro down considerably this year, especially towards mid-year. I would say maybe, and I'll have more of this later. Maybe as low as $117 to our dollar. 117 to our dollar. There's going to be some big, huge issues with major banks on defaulted mortgages. All right, what's happening is that these federal court rulings that they cannot enforce these mortgages because they can't be traced due to this packaging format is going to cost huge trillions of dollars in losses for these banks and these holding companies. All right. So this is going to be very, very very confusing. Law, as I said all along, law is breaking down. And along with that, as law breaks down, government will try to impose more and more regulations on us. All right? The internet, the phones, everything. So be awake. Watch for some good news in the market coming up through the end of the month. Then shift over to commodities and watch them move through February. And that's how to stay ahead of the game for now. We'll talk more about some politics next week. Thanks. Have a great week.